throwing us on the air.
We want to.
I like doing this. I like doing this to Derek because every time I do, he gets really pissed off because
you know what
he's like, "Are we live right now?"
You know what I forgot to do, Craig? I forgot to get my power supply to plug in my computer, but I'm sure I'm going to be able to last an hour. So.
Famous last word.
That's famous last word, yeah.
That's right. Awesome. Hey, you know what? Listen, this is a test. This is a test for your machine, right?
I'll keep checking it.
Excellent. Good stuff. My name is Craig G. This is Canadian AF. Canadian as fuck right here on Revolution Radio Canada. And myself alongside Dimitri Alexiou and Derek. Still with the Allen Cross with expletives, Lewis. Okay, we're still on that. All right, no problem. We do this program every Monday night. This is episode 99. 99. We're going to be doing episode. Yeah. We'll tell you all about the 100th episode in a little while. It's going to be happening on September 23rd. So really looking forward to that.
Nice.
Tonight, we've wanted to get this cat on for forever.
Wait, there's a cat?
There's David Bottrill joins us. Derek, terrible.
What?
David Bottrill joins us, a producer extraordinaire. We have a bazillion things to talk with you about, my friend. So honestly, thank you so much for joining us. So we're going to get going, okay? If you don't mind.
Thanks for having me. I'm getting a little distracted by the reflection of Derek in the back window there, I got to say. But
Derek always manages to screw people up, doesn't he? So there we go.
Derek is currently being directed by J.J. Abrams. You know?
I am currently being.
All right.
Yeah, but anyway,
nice. Good stuff.
Let me here.
Oh, that's a camera.
Well,
that's a camera stand you've got there beside you.
It's called a tripod.
Thanks very much. Okay. What's also called a camera stand. Thank you, guys.
No,
okay, you know what? We're wasting David's time right now. You're wasting David's time right now. So stop it. Okay. Wow. And this is how things go, David, just so you know, as you can see clearly. Right. Derek and I love each other, in quotes. So, Dimitri, take it away.
Oh, well, Canadian as fuck would like to begin by acknowledging the Indigenous peoples of all the lands that we are on today. While we meet tonight on a virtual platform, we would like to take a moment to acknowledge the importance of the lands we call home. We do this to reaffirm our commitment and responsibility in improving relations between nations, to improving our own understanding of local Indigenous peoples and cultures, and to try to move forward in a spirit of reconciliation and collaboration.
Thank you, my friend.
Craig, can I read off the production credentials of David? Because I am like massively impressed.
Yeah,
and have been massively
can you
impressed.
Just,
I'll wait.
You just bear with me 2 seconds, okay?
I don't want to.
Awesome. Thanks very much.
Okay.
I really appreciate
I'll shut up. Jesus.
So, my name's Craig G. Dimitri Alexiou, Derek, Canadian AF, and here we go. This is going to be a freaking awesome podcast. We've been looking forward to this conversation for a long time. Our man, Brian Hogue, set this up for us, so we would like to say a huge thanks to Brian from Burlington's own Conduit. So, there you go. Derek, take it away.
Okay. Hold on.
We're going to be here for a little while.
Hold on to your seats, kids, because we're going to be here for a while. David, I am so ridiculously enamored by the work that you've done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The people you work with. I'm catching shit this whole episode, man.
No. I'm agreeing.
Okay.
I'm just being, yep.
Yep. Get on with it, Derek. I get it. Mm-hmm. Right. So I'm just going to read these. I'm going to read most of these off. I'm not going to read all of these off, but
thanks. We'll be here all night if you do that.
We'll be here. It's going to starting in 1986, for God's sakes. Peter Gabriel, David Sullivan, Tony Childs, King Crimson, Tool, Remy Zero, Ultraspank, Dream Theater, Muse, Flaw, Mudvayne, Silverchair, Dream Theater, Godsmack, I Mother Earth, New Disease, Stain, Coheed and Cambria, Blackbird,
Cambria, yeah.
Whatever.
Tripod.
Tripod's on here. Go fuck yourself. Placebo, Muneen, everybody's talking. Circa Survive. Between the Buried and Me. God, there's Smashing Pumpkins. A Friend in London. Stone Sour. I have played the shit out of Stone Sour on my own show. Smashing Pumpkin. Rush.
Who?
The Holy Triumphant. The Tea Party. Birds of Tokyo.
Lowest of the Low. Come on.
I was getting there. Lowest of the Low. Plumber Collision. Like this is like I had a thrill of a time.
Don't forget Crownlands.
Moneen?
Crownlands.
I said Muneen. Well, I said I wasn't going to read them all.
Okay, all right. Just
but
the latest ones.
I was stoked when we had my pal Dan Broadbeck on, and we went through his, like, we were reading, and we're like, okay, this and that, and Dolores and we're just going through names, and I was just like, wow, this is impressive. And then I read this earlier on last week, and I was like, oh, holy shit.
Well, it's not a competition, Derek.
No, it's not. No, I'm like, it's not a competition. I'm just like, that's an extensive list. That's
absolutely.
I'm like sitting here. I'm still reading because there's still more.
What you're saying, Derek, is I'm a really old guy. And I've just been around a long time.
Way to go, Derek. Thanks for offending the guest. And he's gone. Okay. No, I think the one, David, I think probably arguably between either Peter Gabriel's So, which I know Dimitri is like literally dying to talk to you about.
Okay, but let's be clear about So, right?
Yeah.
I was assisting on that. Kevin Killen engineered that record. Daniel Lanois produced that record. So I was there, but it wasn't. I did more work with Peter in the 9 years subsequent to that. Last Temptation of Christ.
Absolutely.
The last record. But So, you can't really credit that to my work more than me being a part of the process. But Kevin Killen engineered it. Daniel Lanois produced it. Okay.
Daniel Lanois is a bit of a hack. So, you know.
Right. Yeah. So I think I know your name is obviously synonymous with Tool. I think that any Tool fan, if they end up saying the name David Bottrill, just kind of ends up getting a bit of a chill, and it's like, so. What I'd like to do with you, because I've also seen that you've done, going back through your history, you've also been not only a massive producer / engineer and all these wonderful things, but a musician as well.
Yeah, I'm a bit of a hack.
So, okay, you might be a bit of a hack, but you played on a Tool record. So
True.
That's kind of, no big deal or anything. So I was just wondering if you could take us back to the early days of a little town called Dundas, Ontario. When did you end up getting the music bug, and would you be able to tell us sort of like what was your first instrument that really got you?
Sure. Okay. Well, I mean, back in the very, very early days when I was a kid, I took piano lessons. Mm-hmm. I was living on a little street called Terrace Drive, which was in Pleasant Valley, if you will believe that.
Picturesque.
Well, it was actually pretty new subdivision. So, but Terrace Drive was, I was actually more of a downtown kid to start with, but then we moved out to the suburbs, and I hung out there for a little bit, and then I went back downtown. So, but I learned how to play piano when I was a kid. I took piano lessons, not for very long, but I was able to be able to kind of hack out chords and figure things out. And then my brother, who was a great guitar player, he taught me how to play guitar on his very first 3/4 sized Echo EKO acoustic guitar with the action was about an inch off the fretboard. And so I learned how to press very hard.
Fantastic.
To get a note. Yeah. And then when I sort of got a little bit older, I was going to college, and I was in my first year, and I was really unhappy with the course that I was taking. It was just a general business course. And in March of that year, of the first year, I was just about to finish, came home one day and my father had died. So I kind of was thrown off kilter a little bit by that. My
he hadn't been sick?
No, not at all. It was a very sudden heart attack. Just very, very young man, 54 years old.
Oh, geez.
So I was really unhappy with the course that I was taking. I was going to quit, but my mother just said, look, just finish the course. Just go through the course. So it was a 3-year course. Got to the end of the 3rd year, and a really good friend of mine, this all sounds very depressing, but a really good friend of mine that I'd made in college ended up killing himself in the 3rd year. So kind of the one event sort of put me to sleep, and I was just like, okay, well, I'll just kind of finish this course. The second event kind of woke me back up and thought, you know what? You're really not on the right path. You're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. I knew I wanted to do something in music. And my girlfriend at the time, her uncle happened to be Bob Lanois, who was Dan Lanois' brother,
right,
running Grant Avenue Studios. She said, why don't you go talk to my uncle and see what, you could do. So I went down to Grant Avenue Studios, had no idea what I was doing, but I opened the front door, and I looked to the left, and there was a control room of the studio, and it was an instant love. It was like, I don't know what that is, but I want to do that.
Leading up to this moment, had you played piano very seriously at all? Or
I hadn't played. No, I played guitar more seriously at that point, and I'd been in like shitty garage bands that never really left the garage, kind of thing. But I knew I wanted to have something to do with music. I kind of knew at that point in my life that I really wasn't a great player. So I knew that if I wanted to have something to do with music, it would have to be either encouragement or recording or something along that line. I didn't know what, but I knew it wanted to be something. So when I found a studio, I thought, there's an avenue. I can learn that. You can't teach somebody to be a really great player. Like that, you can learn technique, you can do that. But if you haven't got the feel, if you haven't got that intrinsic feeling of what a musician does, then which I knew I didn't have. So I thought, well, okay, I've got to be involved somehow. I'm good at learning things. I'm good at learning other things. So I got into the studio. I got every manual. I sat late at night. I would sit up all night trying to figure out how the console worked, and basically kind of bluffed my way into being an assistant engineer, and then an engineer, and then subsequently a producer.
What kind of things had been accomplished at Grant Avenue up to this point?
So up to this point, they'd done a lot of work, smaller work, probably like the Raffi records that they did, and they had worked a lot with local artists. But it was just at that moment. I mean, my timing was impeccable, because it was just at that moment that Dan was getting work with like Luba and
Parachute Club.
Parachute Club. Thank you very much. Parachute Club. And Brian Eno was coming in. So some of the first sessions I ever heard were like the ambient series, Apollo soundtracks, and music for films coming out of the control room. I had never heard music like that before in my life, but it was fascinating to me. It was kind of like double art, like no math, no science. It was like pure music, pure art. So it was fantastic to kind of get that grounding of an education in the studio, where it wasn't like, okay, well, we're doing a 3-minute pop song. It was like, we're doing a 5-minute instrumental piece with John Hassel and Michael Brook and things like that. So it was a really like fortuitous time to get involved in the studio and to get that kind of foundation of recording and musical creation from people like Dan, from people like John Hassel and Brian Eno and Michael Brook, and that sort of crew of people.
God, these names that you're talking about, I mean, they are pure legends in the industry, and these are the people that you grew up working with, like early on in your career. That must have just been. I mean, like, looking back on it, you must have been like, touch yourself. It's like, are you serious?
Sure. I mean, but at that point, I was like, I didn't know anything about this. I didn't know what a great opportunity it was. I was like making tea and getting, doing running for food runs and stuff like that. So, but absorbing all of what was going on at the time. But, I knew it was something exciting. I knew it was something unique. it's only looking back now, it's like, wow, that was pretty special. It's a pretty special time to be at Grand Avenue. It was a pretty special time to learn from those people that were in there. Harold Budd, all these great, atmospheric musicians that, helped to kind of carve out the knowledge of music and form what my opinions were about the creation of music.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember what?
So where did you? Sorry.
Never mind. Do you remember what board was in Grant Studios?
Yeah.
When you walked in?
It was MCI. Yeah, it was an MCI. Yeah. We had an MCI console and a JH24 tape machine.
Oh, God.
Yeah. Good Lord. I know, right?
God, I love analog so much.
It's funny, and I've really never worked that much on an MCI since. I've been back to Grand Avenue. It's got new ownership now, and I've been back there a few times. And I might be back there more often as I'm moving back to the area. So
yeah, absolutely.
And you are moving back to the area. Whereabouts are you moving to?
So I'm moving back to Dundas. My girlfriend lives in Dundas. I met her just a few years ago. I've been living in Toronto since 2005, and before that was New York, and before that was London, and before that was Bath in England.
Wow. London, you were in for a while.
I was in England for 20 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then that makes sense. Yeah.
I mean, I was back and forth when I was doing the Tool records and the Stained records and things the Stained record was a little bit later, but the Tool records and the other things that I was doing at that time, I was sort of in Los Angeles quite a lot. So, I'd be in London, but I rented a place there in a place called West Hampstead for a couple of years, but for half that time I was in Los Angeles.
Nice.
So,
the reason I traveled a lot. Sorry, I don't mean to talk over you, but the reason I'm asking is I grew up in Dundas.
Oh, okay.
I grew up off Concession 1.
Okay.
There's a Danish trailer park that's been there since the 50s.
Okay.
I believe. And that's where I grew up. That's where I spent the majority of my youth was there. So anytime anybody says I'm from that area, I'm like, I know that. I know where that is.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll be living in town, sort of in the York Road areas where I'll
Okay, cool. Yeah,
I grew up on the other side of town, the Pleasant Valley side, so more south towards Ancaster.
Yeah.
But it wasn't something that I would have ever expected that I do, but there I am.
It's a lovely area. I was just a few weeks ago. I was actually at the Ancaster Tiny Home Show.
Oh, okay.
I worked. My brother works for a company called Groovy Yurts out of Quebec, nice. And they did a setup there. And he's like, "Why don't you come help me?" And so I was like, "Sure." So yeah, it's just an area I know so well. So I'm like, I love being there. It's like all the rolling hills, just empty rolling hills for like as far as you can see. It's the best.
Well, I've like I said, my girlfriend lives there. We got introduced by some very old great friends of mine, and so I'm very happy to be moving back to my hometown. As surprising as it is for me, when I left, I thought I'd never go back, but now I'm going back.
Are you setting up? Sorry, go Dimitri. You go ahead.
Can I ask, what were some qualities of Daniel Lanois that you felt made him such an effective producer, or why do you think he became a producer of such great renown?
I think, and this is, I believe I heard this from Dan as well, is he's really amazingly adept at hearing a band play and hearing something from one musician and something from another and thinking that's going to really work well with that, and storing that information and being able to direct a band in such a way that he's able to capture all the golden moments that everybody comes up with and put them together to kind of make a whole, make something better than what the individual parts were. He's really adept at encouraging musicians to play their best. And to recognize great moments and being able to toss out bad ones, I think.
Mm-hmm. Oh man! Is there any stories that you can like times and stories and things like that you could recall doing the So sessions, like it just being sort of in that environment and it must have been absolutely insane. Did you see? Let me ask you this: did you see any of the musicians at the time?
Sure,
like Tony or Manu or any of those guys?
Yep, Tony and Manu came and played, and I think a really memorable moment for me on the So album, is arriving there and kind of in my military cargo pants and backpack, and it's funny. Dan had called me to come over, but the rest of the session didn't know I was coming. So I showed up, and the studio was in an English barn. Now, an English barn is not the same as you see in the country here, a great big high hayloft barn. It was like a stone building, really one story, kind of bungalow sized, fairly high ceiling, but not like a whole hayloft. But it was on the side of the hill, and outside the window of the control room, I walked in, and they're playing Sledgehammer on the speakers, really loud, which was fantastic. And outside the window was a cow, and it's staring in the window because it was on the side of the hill in the window, and there's the cow right there. I thought, okay, this is a rather surreal experience, but and then people coming in to play, doing amazing things. Kate Bush, when she came and sang "Don't Give Up," was fascinating to watch. I'd been a fan of hers as well over the years. So, having her come down and sing, and so I mean, there were plenty of really fascinating moments. That was one of them.
We were talking to Mark Gain several months ago.
Yeah.
And he was talking about how he and Martha, from Martha and the Muffins, of course, went and visited the studio where Peter Gabriel was recording in 1986, and Craig and I both looked at each other and said, "You're talking about So."
Oh yeah.
You're talking. Were you there when they visited?
I think I was. I don't remember it offhand, but I'm sure I was. They had worked on the one of their records at Grand Avenue, so I kind of knew them from then. Mm-hmm. So I'm sure I did. There's a memory there of mine, but there's so many that I'm not sure that I couldn't say exactly when, but 86 would have been we finished at sort of January 86, because I know we sort of finished off and then went for a ski trip with Kevin and another guy who worked, David Stahlbaumer, who worked for Peter. So I think we finished it pretty early in the year as we were able to go skiing, but they could have been there at that time or just a little bit afterwards, because we did a little bit of extra B-side recording after that. So it might have been that time period.
Now around that period, working with Peter Gabriel, and I read the interview that you did in regards to passions and passion sources on Peter Gabriel's website. This was I don't get the impression that you were overly familiar with a lot of world music, like a lot of the world music that Peter Gabriel had been getting into throughout the 80s.
No, not at all.
Yeah,
not at all. No, he introduced me to a whole host of styles of music that I would have never been introduced to otherwise. So I'm extremely grateful for that, and it actually helped also shape my career in a lot of ways.
Yeah, because you were talking about you were having to mic instruments that you had never seen before, and so that little flute at the beginning of a Sledgehammer, which I can't even remember.
Well, that's a sample. That's a shakuhachi.
It's a sample.
Wow. You see, these are the little tidbits that we love to get. That's fantastic.
I am so disillusioned right now.
I think it was on the emulator.
Mm-hmm.
On the emulator.
Makes sense. It makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So then, now did Peter Gabriel look at you and say, "Oh, I got asked to do something with Scorsese," and say, "Could you?" And did he specifically reach out to you?
Well, I was working for him at the time.
Yes.
So I was his engineer at that time, and he came in and said, "Yeah, I got Scorsese wants me to do this film. Let's record it." Mm-hmm. So we started. We were kind of building Real World Studios at the time. So we started in one of the rooms that was actually finished. The rest wasn't quite finished yet.
Yeah.
And we recorded a lot of percussion, listened to a lot of the source material that became Passion Sources, built built upon some of that stuff. The one piece that was a musical piece that was called by an artist called Nassal Gawan that Scorsese had heard and was kind of used that as a reference for like, here's how we want it to sound with all of this. This style of music, or this is the feeling we want to get. So we sort of listened to that and listened to other sources and built upon that. There was actually a really fun time during the recording that this Egyptian percussionist called Hossam Ramsey, real character, real sort of like Egyptian carpet salesman kind of guy. But he was a great percussionist. He actually toured later on with Page and Plant for their solo tours, but he was a real character. He came down for like a day to sort of do a session and build upon the tracks. But as it turned out, we had so much like field recordings of Egyptian musicians, and we were sort of going for a North African feel on the whole soundtrack. And so we'd come in and they'd be playing this one tune and we'd want to use it as a piece. And Hossam would listen and be like, yeah, but if I played this would, I can double all these parts and make it sound really present. And so he ended up staying for a week, and just he and I sat and recorded, like we doubled up basically all of these source recordings. He's like, oh yeah, okay, now here's the tabla part. Okay, here's the duf part. Here's the mazhar part. And he would just play all of them. And we just like, he came with like one set of clothing and he stayed for a week. It was fantastic.
Oh my God.
So were you now how intimidating was that? Were these Peter Gabriel projects to you? Like as somebody who was pretty like, did you feel like you were still at the beginning of your career? And then
yeah, to a certain degree. But yeah. You know what? It's funny, like I think I was kind of so naive that I didn't feel like I was a fan of Peter Gabriel's solo records and Genesis to a certain degree, but because I think I was young enough that I didn't really kind of realize the opportunity I was being presented with, and so it wasn't quite so intimidating. There was one session, I'll tell you this. So this one, and it's kind of embarrassing for me, but you guys seem like nice guys, and you're not going to tell anybody else. So I'll tell you this story.
This is closed circuit right now. Nobody else is even fucking listening.
We're live. Just so you know.
I know.
When did you push that button?
I won't swear. Yeah.
Oh no,
what?
Go right ahead. That's no problem.
No. The show is called Canadian as Fuck, David.
Sorry.
Have you seen my title here?
Fair enough. Okay. Yeah. So during that time, the early time before Real World was actually built, we were still in the barn. Joni Mitchell and her husband, Larry Klein, were over in the Bath area doing a recording with Ben Orr from the Cars. Larry was producing his solo record. And Joni was around, and she came over and she visited, and she said, and Peter said, well, while you're here, if you want to do any recording, just use my studio. Dave does the work. And so I said, yeah, okay, well, Joni Mitchell was kind of a big deal. And that was like, okay, I'll do that. I don't know if I'm up for it, but I will give it a go. Well, Joni was pretty nocturnal, and I'm very much not nocturnal. so we worked like for, I guess, a month or a month and a half, turning the day around and going through the night. And so I would get tired, and my recording techniques would be suffered. So there's a thing that we used to do back in the day, which was when you're recording on analog tape, you have to drop in. Right, you have to drop into the recording. Young kids don't understand this in the digital world, but when a tape machine is running and you're recording on a tape machine, in order to record another line of a vocal, you have to play the back, people listen to it, and then you actually drop in, hit record. Well, I was doing that, but I'd get pretty tired, and I would drop in earlier. I would drop in late, and Joni was getting frustrated, and I was getting frustrated. And we went through our last night, and it was particularly bad. It just like everything was very working, and I was getting frustrated, and I was getting intimidated. Anyway, at the end of the night, the morning, she was like, "Yeah, we can't do this anymore," and I essentially got fired off of that job.
Oh,
but
wow.
And I was pretty heartbroken, as when you get fired, you are. But Peter said, he's like, "Well, don't worry about it. You have to know what it's like at the bottom to feel like it's like at the top." So, he was fine. We kept working together, but we then went on tour, something that I did never think I would do, but because of the situation, as took off more and more, Peter needed more people to work on the tour, so they recruited me. Not a live guy at all, but I ended up because I was so used to setting up Peter's keyboards and doing that. They said, "Well, we got to get Dave out here." So they got me a visa, and I joined the tour. And when we were playing Los Angeles, Joni was back in the dressing room, and I was kind of coming back and forth and doing stuff. Anyway, she's like, "Bottrill, get over here." She calls me over. She just called me Bottrill. Calls me over. She goes, "Listen, I was pretty hard on you back then when we were recording, but I just wanted you to know that the sounds that you recorded when we got them back to LA were the best sounds on the whole record. So thanks for that."
Oh, that's awesome.
So I thought, you know what? She didn't have to do that. It was a really nice thing to do, and it sort of helped with my confidence.
So this is Chalk Mark in a Rainstorm you're talking about, right?
Chalk Mark in a Rainstorm, yeah.
Yeah, so that was like My Secret Place?
Yes, My Secret Place and Number One. And so we did a lot.
Great record. Yeah.
We did a lot, and Peter did a lot of singing and working on that record too. So
yeah.
David, if you don't know, if you're not familiar with our show, we refer to Dimitri as Dimitripedia.
Okay.
My whole purpose on this show is to find things that I can stump Dimitri with, and they are very, very few and far between.
Okay.
This guy knows so much stuff.
He's a pretty freaking smart guy. So, David, I wanted to ask you. So, if you don't mind, I just wanted to ask you real quick. Like, you're talking about these massive names, like the Joni Mitchells of the world and the Peter Gabriels and what have you. I'm wondering if there is. Probably when you meet a lot of these people, you think to yourself like, "Wow, this is incredible." Like for me personally speaking, I hate to say it, if I met a lot of movie stars, it wouldn't even faze me. I don't, wouldn't matter.
Yeah.
If I met Paul McCartney, I'd bawl my eyes out. You know what I mean? So, is there a musician that you kind of walked into a room that maybe you weren't exactly 100% sure that you were going to be working with at the time, but you walked in and you're just like, "Oh my goodness, I can't believe this person's here"?
Well, there was a moment. So when we finished the So album and had done the tour in London, they do this show every year called the Princess Trust, and it's done at the Albert Hall. And so Peter got invited to do that. There was an all-star band. It's actually two stories from this show if you want to hear them. But the all-star band was Phil Collins playing drums, Mick Karn on bass, Mick Karn from Japan.
Wow.
David Rhodes came and played guitar, but the actual band guitar player was Brian May.
Oh, wow.
And who's he? So story number one, I'm setting up Peter's piano and keyboards on the side of the stage. It's quite a wide stage, and it was set up for a lot of people. This guy comes walking on, big curly black hair, carrying a Vox AC30 and a homemade guitar, sets it up on the other side, and he's playing, and it's Brian May, of course.
Oh my God.
And that sound comes out, and I'm way over here, right? Like I'm like nothing, and I'm just like crew guy. I'm like this nobody on the stage but him and me. And he's like over there, right? And I'm talking like 50, 60 feet away over here on it. So, and I'm minding my own business. I'm like, cool, that's that Brian May sound. And he starts playing. It's like, yep, there's that sound. It sounds great. Anyway, he puts the guitar down, walks the entire width of the stage. "Hi, I'm Brian. What's your name? What are you doing here?" And I'm like, "I'm nobody. I'm Dave. I'm setting up Peter Gabriel's
awesome.
keyboards." Oh, cool. Nice.
So are you a big Queen fan from way back in the day?
I was a big fan. Like Queen, Sheer Heart Attack, and Bohemian Rhapsody, of course, and stuff like that. Sure. I mean, but it's that sound. I mean, if you're in the sound business, if you're in the recording and in the sound business, like that nobody has that sound. It's like Eddie Van Halen. It's like, like these are guys that have that sound. So it was just a very cool moment for him to actually come walk the entire width of the stage, which he did not have to do. Like, I would not have thought the slightest less of him had he just set up his guitar, put it down, and walked backstage. Like, that's what you do. He came over, went out of his way, because I'm the only other guy on the stage, and said hi. I thought, what a sweet thing to do.
That's awesome.
He had to walk that entire stage to say that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. He had to. But he had to. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to say it.
Well, that's true.
He could have shouted it.
He could have shouted, but Brian doesn't usually shout.
So story number 2, you're talking about, Craig, like sort of famous people that you're sort of gobsmacked about. And I am a fan of music, and I'm a fan of players, but I'm not like, I don't get too intimidated by people, except maybe a few. Like Bowie, when I met Bowie, that was like, oh, okay. And it was literally backstage at his show. It was not anything. Peter and I were at it. Peter would get invited to a lot of concerts. He would take me along with him. So I'd go, and it's like watching David Bowie backstage. It's like, yep. If I could have worked with anybody, that's the guy. But so I'm sitting backstage at the Princess Trust, and we finished setting up, and I'm sitting down, and I'm having my lunch. And it's only me with like Peter didn't need anybody else. So it's only me. So I'm sitting there, and I'm doing the sort of like newspaper on the side, and I'm eating my soup, kind of like this. They're doing, and these 2 guys kind of come and sit across from me, and they start talking like this. And it was one of those like moments where you're sort of read the newspaper, you do like the whole doing there, and it's Eric Clapton and Elton John.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, can you guys go somewhere else? Because I
I can't breathe in this space.
It was just one of those like, oh, okay, all right, well, because it was like Princess Trust concerts filled with everybody and their brother, famous people. So it was just a really funny moment of like sort of like spoon hanging. So,
so
that's so cool.
So when did you get the idea to come back to Canada and set up Rattlebox?
So I was living in New York, and I got introduced by my sister to this girl who was coming down to New York to visit some friends, and we hit it off, and she lived in Toronto, so I ended up commuting back and forth from New York to Toronto. New York, that was during the Stained album, so it was New York. So I'd come home on a Friday we were working in Springfield, Massachusetts. So we go work all week, come back to New York, fly to Toronto, fly back to New York, drive up to Springfield. It was kind of a crazy few months. Anyway, so I decided to move back to Canada and get married. So we got married, and then I have a fabulous stepdaughter from that. We're divorced now. But I decided to stay in Canada in order to try to be a part of my stepdaughter's life. Which I am, and she's fabulous. She finished university just this year, just the end of last year, and now she lives very close to me here in Toronto. So I stayed, and it just, sometimes life just works out where you don't think you're going to come back in Canada. I didn't think I was going to be living back in Canada, but I am. Didn't think I was going to move back to my hometown, but met this other fabulous woman, and we fell in love, and now I'm moving back to Dundas. So.
And what made you want to set up the studio?
Oh, so being that I was back in Canada, I sort of always wanted to have a studio. I was going to build one in the house that we had, but I ended up thinking, well, I'll just rent a place down on Dufferin Street, and worked with my partner, Brian Moncar's business partner, and we set it up just to have a studio in Toronto. It was really great. I really enjoyed having it, but it was kind of, at the time, it was one of those unfortunate situations where my clients were too large to come into the studio, and Brian's clients were not large enough to be in the studio. It was kind of the perfectly wrong size, unfortunately. But we ran it for 3 years, and then the lease ran out, and they were going to tear down the building, which they've done now, and they've built condos there. So we didn't renew the lease. We moved on, and I ended up selling the console to Sam Reed from
Glass Tiger?
From Glass Tiger. Yeah. We got it, and I just moved on and built a studio in my place where I'm all in the box now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now so when you move back to Dundas, are you setting up shop?
Yep.
The same way.
Yep.
Nice.
I'll build a studio. So what I do in my studios, I don't build them big enough to actually put a full band in, but I'll build them so I can do overdubs and mixing. I'll do a lot of mixing these days. I'm doing some projects right now that I'm doing. That's why I've got all these speakers. I'm doing some immersive audio, Atmos, Dolby Atmos mixes. So
okay.
Yeah.
All right. So really, yeah. So yeah, we who did we talk to about Atmos?
Richard Chicky.
Rich Chicky.
Richard Chicky.
Yeah.
Rich Chicky's got a whole production line of Atmos mixes that he does a lot of those.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he was saying that he was a big fan of that when it first came out. He was like, "Oh, what's this? What's going on with this?" And then he was just like, "This is fantastic."
Yeah.
And now everything, not everything, but a lot of everything is based in Atmos. Everything, like he was saying that he's like, you can listen to one thing and it's like, like a regular, not a regular, but like a regular stereo, like a Dolby stereo mix. And you're like, oh, that's great. But he says most everybody is going Atmos for everything right now, just because the immersive quality in audio right now.
Well, he had a whole story about remixing Tom Sawyer. And then playing that back for Alex Lifeson.
Yeah.
And then Alex saying, it finally sounds like it's supposed to sound. Yeah. Like that's how I've always imagined it sounded. Yeah. And it didn't sound like that ever before to him, Yeah. So Atmos is I don't know all the ins and outs of it, but yeah, Atmos sounds like an amazing thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, it's great. It's the only problem. Like, I think I love the format. It's a lot of fun to work in, and you really do kind of get immersed by the music, which is what you're supposed to do. Hopefully it will evolve such that the consumer isn't required to invest like we do into a multiple speaker setup, to have it be able to listen to it. Binaural is one way that people can do it just on earbuds, but it's not quite the same.
No.
It's close, but it's not quite the same. And you're trying to mix between the two versions, between the Atmos and the binaural, and make sure that they translate back and forth. It's quite a challenging format, but it's fun to do. And I think that certainly a lot of artists and labels are working back catalog by mixing it in Atmos. But it's a fun format to work in.
I found that a lot of people right now, like general public people, I'm speaking of, have less of like a dedicated, specific like music component, and more of like a playing everything through your home entertainment system. Mm-hmm. So you do have that. You do have that Atmos quality, like with like the binaural of the soundbar as well.
Soundbars are a possibility, yes.
Yeah, but I know I personally know a lot of people with like a home theater basic setup.
Okay.
Where they like if they put on like an album, like they're playing like vinyl, and their vinyl is run through their home studio or their home entertainment system with a surround sound basically, and they can get kind of that quality to come out through like an almost it's almost, but it's not there, because I know Atmos is basically mostly digital anyway, right?
It's all digital. If you're doing it with vinyl, you'd have to upmix it in some way, but
but I know people that are doing it, and as I said, the general public I found are more inclined to that, whereas like vinyl heads are like, this is my stereo for my vinyl, and this is my stereo for this, and I listen to these things separately because they're mixed and mastered and done a certain way that this has to be listened to here, right? Like 8 tracks specifically are listened to from this machine, and cassettes are listened to over here, kind of thing. Yeah, it's fascinating stuff.
It's all down to the mastering format, right?
Yes.
If you're mastering something for vinyl, you have to do it in a certain way that's different than if you're mastering it for digital, or you're mastering it for cassette.
So let me ask you, what is a quality of a studio that David Bottrill loves, and what is a quality of a studio that David Bottrill hates?
Vibes, probably.
Vibes.
It's got to be. It's got to be a cool place that a musician feels like they're comfortable. So, I mean, there's a bunch of studios. Actually, there are. You know what? Lately, I haven't been in a studio that I haven't liked in a long time, especially in the Toronto area. I mean, Revolution's great, Noble's great, Union Sound. Union Sound is really great. We did the lowest of the low there. But it's almost as much as anything. It's down to the people at the studio. Like I can make an environment be cool. And like all these places have made their environments really cool already, but I can take like a corporate-ish kind of studio and make it a good vibe. But if it hasn't got great people working in it, then you're fighting against it. You got to have really good people, and all these places have great people working in them.
Nice. Our buddy Scott Comer is actually building a retreat studio right now.
Oh, where?
In Burlington.
Okay. Hook me up.
I will totally hook you up.
Oh, wow. Okay.
100% hook you up.
All right.
So he's literally in the middle of it. I actually have to go paint it. He's in the middle of building this whole entire studio. So it's basically like, come stay in the house. It's the whole basement is a studio. So you come, you stay in the house. He's literally lakeshore in Burlington.
Nice.
And he has this great pool and a backyard. It's massive. It's amazing. And then there's like a walk down to like this little terrace area, like right on the water. It's fantastic. I am totally sending you an email and hooking you up with my buddy Comer.
I built a place in just off of Sororan in Roncesvalles area.
Okay.
Yeah.
I built a studio in my basement there. I made one record there,
Nice.
and then we moved, which wasn't actually my choice. I didn't want to move, but
Okay.
Daniel
Do you
actually lives in that area right now.
yeah, Dan's got a studio in Roncesvalles.
Do you miss those? Do you miss
street
those
from
vibes from that basement studio? Is that what you miss? You sound sad. Like it had good vibes, and you had.
You know what? It was just no. It was more the neighborhood, and I mean I liked the studio, but the neighborhood was cool. The house was cool. The house was like, it wasn't. We'd gutted it and redid it inside with like new like fixed it up, and like it was probably, other than my current place, which I love, which is basically a loft in Liberty Village.
Yeah.
In the cool side of Liberty Village, not the condo side. We're the west end. All the red brick, cool.
Okay.
Right before the soccer field.
Right kitty corner to the soccer field.
I know exactly where you are.
Yeah.
Which house is it on Sororan?
Oh, come on! You can't
the
tell.
house on I wasn't on Sororan. It was actually Pearson.
Oh, okay.
So you know where Mitzi's is, or was?
Yeah, I know exactly where Mitzi's is.
Yeah, is it still there?
No, actually, they just recently, like after COVID, they recently shut down.
Okay, so we were on the north side of Pearson, across. So if you she was at Mitzi's was Sororan and Pearson,
Yeah.
and then we were back like I don't know 5 or 6 houses on the north side.
Amazing.
It was just a cool place, and then we ended up moving to another house in neighborhood that I did not like very much.
Right.
And then we kind of left that house and went down to Carlisle, which is near Waterdown, up on Center Road there for a year, and then we split up, and that was that. So
Gotcha.
So
a couple of things here. First off, I'm just wondering, so is it difficult to wrangle a group of guys like Tool? Like
no, not at all.
No?
No. The Tool are amazingly prepared and have an incredible work ethic.
Oh, okay.
No. There's no difficulty wrangling them at all. They are like, how long it takes them to write their stuff, right? They write. It's very precise what they do. So when they come into play, like they know their shit, right? Yeah. And they're all like stellar musicians, right?
Yeah.
How long has it been since the last album?
Sorry?
How long has it been since the last album?
Not long, like a few years. By that stage.
Fear Inoculum came out during COVID.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
A few years. Mm-hmm. I didn't do that record or the one.
No, I didn't think you did.
No. I did Lateralis
and
Anima.
Yeah. Onima is how you say it. Okay, everybody said Einema.
That's how Maynard said it, so I just go by. He's the writer.
So two things here. Derek likes to. Yeah, sorry, Dimitri. I got a few things here. So how's your battery doing?
Oh, good.
Perfect. Excellent. Yeah. Derek likes to give the warnings.
About half.
It's been a while. We basically, when we put out our emailer, we're like, 20 to 30 minutes of your time. We're almost an hour here, and I can easily talk to you for another hour. So I'm wondering, is there a producer / engineer that has really, for you, that you just look at and you just think, aside from maybe obviously like a Lanois or someone like that, someone that you kind of look at and you think, wow, like this person has really got it?
Like from a mixing standpoint, Clear Mountain is probably like one of the pinnacles. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Like he was great. Andy Wallace. I got to work in a studio near Andy Wallace. In another room from him. I always thought he was fantastic. I mean, Dan is an obvious choice, and Eno as a producer. Eno is probably the most creative producer I've ever had any interaction with, for sure. It's funny, the sort of fraternity of producers and engineers. We meet up at conferences and stuff like that, or if you're in a multi-facility, but you actually don't hang out with them that often.
For sure, because you guys are all busy and working.
We're all busy and working, and
you could be in London and
Bob Ezrin. Bob Ezrin's great. Bob's become like a sort of like a friend, and he actually does a lot of help with the charity that I'm involved with. So
we're going to want to talk to you about that very shortly, actually. Yeah. Also, we asked our man Richard Chicky about this exact question. What 3 pieces of gear made life better for you, or changed your life, or you just think are awesome as far as studio equipment?
What piece of gear? Well, I mean, old Neve or API consoles are just for recording. They're the harmonic distortion that I grew up with. So, right. And the sort of
the sound that we all grew up with. Yeah.
The sound that you grew up with, the saturation of those mic preamps, the sort of just that warm analog sound that we grew up of using. I think I love of all the gear that I've sort of kept and sold over the years. I think my Transient Designer is one that I really like. The original Transient Designer. It's basically an extreme compressor. It helps to roll off or accentuate transients. And then I've got my fantastic old microphone that I still record vocals with. That's an old tube microphone that I got from a guy in East Berlin, and we call it the Hitler mic. It's got looks like a little lollipop. Some people call it the lollipop mic. Some people call it the Hitler mic. It's the M7S, which is the capsule that is in the U47, which is a classic microphone, but it's got a different amplifier to it. Numbers that I can only remember half the time, but yeah, that's like I've recorded everybody from Peter to Maynard to Stain to, all the singers that I tend to do is with that microphone. If that one doesn't work, then you get a 58 for them. But
58, that's what I've got right here. 58 with a pop filter. There you go.
They're a great microphone.
They broke, don't fix it.
That's right. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree, Derek.
Well, and you can throw it across the room, and it'll probably work when you pick it back up again.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, it's like a Technics 1200 turntable. Same thing. Sure. You drop it off the top of a building. It'll still work.
There you go. I've owned one.
Yeah, me too. Exactly. Since 2009, you've been on the board of directors for Make Music Matters. Could you talk about that?
Sure. So I got involved with Darcy Adaman, the founder of that, back in 2009 when we went to Rwanda, doing another project called Song for Africa. Essentially, we were trying to raise awareness for Rwanda after the genocide. But during that time, we actually went to a little school. I had my laptop and a set of mics, and the kids knew that we were coming. It was a school for kids with HIV, and the kids knew we were coming, and they knew we had recording equipment. So they had all written songs. So they all came up one at a time and sang into the mic or played a keyboard. And it was very, very simple recording. But we noticed that this was really the highlight of their year, and it sort of made their I won't say suffering, but the trials and tribulations that they were going through seem less of a problem. So this started an idea with mainly Darcy, but myself a little bit as well, that using the creation of music, you can help to heal a lot of things, particularly trauma. So what Darcy did is set up this charity, and I got involved. I'm on the board of directors. I'm now the chairperson. Awesome. What we do is we set up small recording studios in places like Pansy Hospital in the DRC. We've got one with the Aboriginal Legal Society here in Toronto, one with the Keowan dance community in Northern Alberta, so Indigenous communities there. We use and vet local music producers, local therapists, and people come in either individually or in groups. They tell their stories. The music producer will play a little bit of beats or some kind of program. People will come up with melodies, and they'll write songs, and we'll record them, and they'll be telling their stories. We never tell them what to write about. They can write about whatever they want, but it's the creative process and the cathartic process of telling their story and potentially becoming advocates for their situation that allows them to, heal from their trauma. We fool them into coming into a recording session, and we slip the therapy in underneath. So these people, we've got, we then take those recordings, we get them professionally mixed and mastered. I've got a team of about, I think we're up to about 100 now, mix engineers and mastering engineers. And then we release it all through Warner Music Canada, worldwide through all the digital platforms. It's all in the digital platforms. Sometimes, like in the Congo, we send it back to local radio stations. So that the people there, it's mostly women in that situation. They come into Pansy Hospital, which was set up for reconstructive surgery. They come in, they get any surgery that they need as a result of the trauma that they would have suffered, physical trauma from the gender-based violence. They come into the recording sessions, they tell their stories, and then they can become advocates for their situation. I've heard amazing stories where, women that have had children born out of these rapes that have happened, bonding with those children after doing performances, after doing the recording of their music. What we're trying to do in those situations is stop the cycle of children being born out of rape, being shunned by their communities. Children don't get educated, they don't get fed properly, they don't develop properly. They then become targets for the militias that then pick them up. Then they become the militias themselves. So trying to break that cycle, get back to the nurturing of the mother for the child, get them fed, get them educated, much less likely to actually feel like they need to join a militia and complete that cycle. So, and in the Indigenous communities, we're working with as I said, Aboriginal Legal Services in Toronto, the Keowan dance community up in Northern Alberta, trying to work as much as we can with people who are suffering trauma in other ways, residential schools, for example, or, distant communities where there's not much to do except for, huff gas or do math, So we've had, I think, over 50 albums out now.
Oh my goodness, that's fantastic.
I think it's somewhere between 40 and 50, something like that.
That's wonderful.
But yeah, we do a lot of work. So if anybody is interested in learning anything more or donating or volunteering for us, it's www.makemusicmatter.org.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah. You're totally getting hooked up with Scotty, 100%.
Oh yeah. Oh no, for sure, absolutely.
100%.
Yeah. And all the information on that, probably, I'm sure there's probably a link on your website as well too.
There's a link on mine, yes.
Yeah,
this,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. Oh, there we go. And Dimitri's put it up on the chat. Perfect.
Yeah, I really think that everybody needs a creative outlet, and it would help people process their trials and tribulations like better. Not to minimize what they're going through, but it helps people power through, I think.
Well,
music is universal too.
We as musicians know how, like the cathartic process of writing is, right?
Yeah.
Even prose writing, any kind of writing system, it helps you to work through your issues.
Yeah.
Right. And creation of music is an incredible tool. And it's not just me saying that. We've had peer-reviewed studies that show that it's the best at reducing PTSD, anxiety, and trauma than pretty much anything that they've ever tried. So it really is. It's actually scientific, healing therapy.
Fantastic. Brother, what can I say? Like we've said, I could literally talk to you for another hour.
Oh yeah, I have so many more questions, but I'm respectful of your time.
Legitimately, we're like, okay, so let's start. Okay, so let's start with enema. How do you Onema.
Oh, thanks for telling us how to pronounce that. Yeah. I finally know how to pronounce that. Okay,
that's how Maynard pronounced it to me back in the day. So that's always what I say.
Nice. Oh, that's so cool.
Onema lateralis.
Onema lateralis. Perfect.
Yeah, I figured it would be lateralis. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. David Bottrill, thank you. Like, you're just properly awesome, and we seriously appreciate your time. We're so lucky because we get to talk to people like you that are not only, obviously you're wonderfully revered in this country, but massively international as well too. So,
you want to know one last funny story?
Would
okay.
love
all right. To. Oh, fine.
100%.
So we suppose.
I'm so laid back. I'm just like sitting here going, "This is great."
Yeah,
like, I could just listen
me too.
To you talk.
So, Alan Reed. Do you know Alan Reed? Alan is the head of the Junos at the moment.
Okay.
But he used to be president of A&R at Universal back in the day. And I was making an I Mother Earth record with him just after I had done, I think it was Onema, the Tool record. Anyway,
was it Blue, Green, Orange, or was it?
Blue, Green, Orange, yeah. We mixed Blue, Green, Orange up at Mourne Heights.
Right.
And then I did, actually, we went on later and did a Quicksilver Meat Dream. But during that time, Alan tried to put me up to the Juno committee for producer of the year for the Tool records. But the Juno committee didn't believe that I was Canadian. And I didn't know this until somebody got a hold of me to try to get my passport. And by the time I got my passport in, they'd already made the decision. And I wasn't nominated. So no Juno for me. Oh, well.
Not yet.
You've muddled through.
I've muddled through, yes.
Yeah.
It hasn't
well, you have Grammys, right? Well, there you go. You're fine.
one less thing to dust. That's
right. Yeah. Exactly. That's right. Yeah. That's right. What is it that they say? One less paperweight or something like that, or something like that. Yeah. Exactly. No.
The three of us will see what we can do next year.
That's right.
With our enormous influence.
Okay.
So we're going to be David. We're going to be celebrating our 100th episode.
Well, congratulations.
Honestly, thank you so much. We're really stoked for that. And it was funny because about 6 months ago, Brian Hogue says to me, "Do you know the name David Bottrill?" And I said, "Brian, like, are you talking Tool David Bottrill?" And he's like, "Yeah. Oh, he's a friend of mine." I'm like, "Brian, do you think you could get David Bottrill for me?" So he's like, "Let me talk to him, see what I can do." And here you are. So
actually,
honestly, my friend,
Craig asked to see your passport first.
He did.
That's right.
Well, it's Canadian AF, right?
And since you're friends with Brian Hogue, could you do us a favor? Could you put a fire under his butt a little bit and just be like, "Dude, finish that album"?
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I'll talk.
Honestly, please do. We all three of us have like, Brian, we're dying for the record. Can't wait for it. And I've heard a couple of. He's played me a couple of things. It sounds fantastic.
So many secrets we can't talk about.
Well, he's getting into he's gone into the vortex of Orangeville, I think. So
yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
It happens.
Absolutely. David, again, thank you so much, my friend. We really appreciate you being here tonight.
My pleasure, guys. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. This has just been amazing.
Really,
it's love to have you back in the future if you want to.
Sure.
We're not going anywhere. So we actually are going to be changing the name of the show, however. So,
okay.
Yeah, we're for the 100th episode. We're brainstorming. We might even brainstorm some of the things on the air tonight. But anyway, Maybe. No? Okay. So
Okay.
I'd like to go back to an album. I believe this was 2016, 2018 was the Lowest of the Low Agipop.
Yeah. Agipop. Yeah.
And that, of course, is a fantastic record that our man David Bottrill here produced. So, again, my friend, thank you. Have a wonderful evening.
My pleasure.
Thanks so much for being here. We greatly appreciate it.
Thanks,
There's Lowest of the Low. Lowest of the Low. The track is called The Barricade, episode 99, almost hitting 100 right here, Canadian as fuck, on Revolution Radio Canada. Thanks again, David.
Pleasure.
Maybe play the track.
I am.
Okay. Anytime soon?
What's going on? Hang on a second. Check
Talk
1 2.
amongst yourselves.
Uh-oh. This isn't good.
Did you break it?
No, Uh-oh. Derek, Dimitri, talk.
So
I really,
David,
we really
David,
did
is there-
want to respect your time.
but go.
I can't hear it either. So.
I know,
Go.
but
It's because it's not playing. That's
so
why.
yeah, like
Okay.
there is a little dog that lives with Craig that sometimes chews cords. I hope that that's not what happened tonight. Oh wait, okay. So, but all right, it was in my head.
I fixed it. I apologize.
Okay.
Go ahead, Dimitri. If you don't mind,
Dimitri,
David,
ask
one
your
last question, and then I got it fixed. I apologize.
For me? Okay. Have you? All right. Back when he was the lead singer of Genesis, Peter Gabriel played flute a lot. Did he?
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever see him play flute?
No.
When you were working? No. Wow. Okay. So that was
There we
totally a
go.
70. That was totally a 70s thing.
No,
Okay.
of course. Yeah. No, fair.
Awesome, David. Again, thank you so much. That's why they call it live radio,
One
my
more
friends.
time, folks. One
One more time. Here we are. We've got Lowest of the Low in The Barricade right here. Episode 99, Canadian is fucking Revolution Radio Canada.
Strict, contract, constrain. Well, I'll meet you on the barricade in the cool, defiant rain. How when you and your brothers held on to your mothers, your story on a written page, where they read you the rules and they sent you to school, but she paid for the bars on your cage, and you played a poison violin in a symphony of rage. Now it's time you traded that fucker in for a place on the barricade. In or out, drug or shout. The seconds the jury, minutes the judge, in the hour of the barricade. Your green eyes and your battle cries are the sweetest warning served. But the only ring can dismantle this thing is the sound of a siren heard by the children of apostasy who will rescue this wretched world and join their hands like a barricade, like an insolent fist full of pearls. Well, stay or go now or no. The week is the hangman, the month is the rope, in the year the barricade. Some vote with their heads, and some vote with their hearts, and some vote with the end of their dicks. Well, you can vote with a ballot, you can vote with your wallet, but it's always a vote for the pricks. So let me tell you this for free, my next vote's with a brick.